Hi guys, it is Dom here from WrestleSphere. Just had the wonderful opportunity to chat to Rickey Shane Page about his time in MLW, about Burning Heart Wrestling coming over to the UK, learning from Raven and the Calling in MLW, his 20 plus year career, and so much more. Go and support Rickey Shane Page, go and support Burning Heart Wrestling, support MLW, support wrestling, and thank you for being here for us as well. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you again on the other side. Thanks to Rickey for his time. Hope you enjoy this. Right, Rickey, it is a pleasure to sit down with you. Thank you so much for making the time today. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
So, before we go into promoting Burning Heart Pro Wrestling on the tour, I have a question for you that I would like to ask, all veterans, people that have been in the business for a long, long time and have achieved different things. Obviously, you have worked all over the world for various different promotions for over 20 years. So, how do you define success as a wrestler and as a person? And are they two different things, or are they one and the same thing?
Uh, for me, it's one and the same.
Right.
And I think it's case by case. So for me personally, once I went to Japan, I was like, that's success for me. You know what I mean? Um, I think some people say it could be financially, to be financially secure by wrestling, but so few get that, and I don't think
Yeah.
people realize that. Like, if you really think about it, the percentages, like not that many have a secure life in wrestling. So for me, it's just about personal things that I wanted to do. And Japan was definitely one. Coming to England is definitely another one. Just traveling. Like I'm like a poor white kid from Ohio, like I'm the first person in my family to have a passport. So like,
Right.
it's cool that I got to go everywhere I did.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well deserved as well. I think as a sort of an extension of that, then, what have you learned about yourself since the start of your career, doing the stuff in CZW, now with MLW and doing this? I know that you decided not to do death matches anymore, and you've obviously made some changes to your career. So what have you learned about yourself from the very beginning, Rickey,
Mm.
to where you are now? What lessons have you taught yourself, I guess?
Um, I think I've taught myself just about perseverance.
Hmm.
I've been wrestling for 23 years. I've only ever taken off maybe one time I was injured and I was out for about 10 months with my neck. And then even COVID, I was it was only 3 or 4 months of not wrestling. And then,
Mm.
we were doing shows outside in America and stuff. So I think it's just about that grind that I know I can do it and that I've done it for this long and at a high level.
Mm.
And I think I just learned that I'm tougher and stronger than what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that a difficult kind of lesson to learn? Again, kind of, being tougher and stronger than you think implies that maybe there was a lack of confidence there to begin
Oh,
with.
still, I mean, I still have that. I think every wrestler has that lack of confidence and that self-esteem issue when it comes to like, do people like me? Was my match good? Did I do this? Oh, I messed that one thing up. Like, it's just we're all insecure little kids, and we're trying to make people have a good night for 10 minutes in the ring. So we all have that. But as I've gotten older, and just from staying around and being around the people that I have, like some of the best wrestlers in the world, some of the greatest minds ever, and I've just got to soak that all in. So as time comes, you get less nervous, you know what I mean? But I'm still self-conscious for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's actually an interesting question to bring in. We work with a lot of young people who struggle with that self-confidence. They want to work in entertainment, they want to work in the music industry, maybe they want to be wrestlers. What advice would you give to any young person consuming this in whatever way they are to find that confidence? Obviously, it's different for everybody, but what was your journey like to that?
I think the one thing I could say is to just shut up and listen. Um, Even if the person's wrong, just listen. And you can take something from anyone. And that's something I've learned. I've taken even bad advice. I've been like, okay, that was bad, but there was a little nugget in there that was good. So you got two ears and one mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much as you speak. I mean, I know we've all heard it, but it's very true. I'd also say it ain't that serious. Don't get so worked up about it. You know, we are choreographing fights, in spandex. It's not life or death.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you got to stand up for yourself, and sometimes you got to draw that line. But for the
Mm,
most part, it ain't that serious. Let things go. Who cares?
yeah.
And thirdly, because I know that a lot of wrestlers are insecure kids, go to therapy.
Yeah, that's cool. Good bit of advice there.
Yeah.
In terms of one of the things that I love about you, you actually kind of got me watching MLW through the calling stuff and everything. One of the things I've in sort of researching your previous interviews is your love of promos, creating promos, and kind of dropping Easter eggs and things. I think that's really fascinating, and I loved watching those promos. Talk me through some of your creative inspirations, Rickey, and how they've evolved through kind of, I guess, your learning about ring psychology, about the industry itself, because you don't just get in front of a camera and just talk. It feels like a vision, and I don't know if I've interpreted that correctly, but it feels like it's a vision. You've got a vision and an idea every time you deliver something. So how have your creative inspirations developed over your career?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I don't think doing something without it being something and having tangible like feeling to it, and that's not worth doing. Um, Honestly, I'm a movie freak. I love watching movies. I love watching shows and just pop culture kind of stuff. I've always been obsessed with watching movies when I was my whole life. I remember being able to work a VHS player before I knew how to walk.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff I do is just like with all the like full for O promos I was doing during the pandemic. It was just like movie stuff that I like one of the we did like a homecoming dance and by this pool, and it was just because I had watched She's All That, and I
Yeah.
wanted to use that song of her walking down the stairs in the promo, and I was like, oh, okay, we'll just, and the show was called Homecoming, and I was like, oh, I'll just do like a dance, and like then I'll at the end of it for 10 seconds I'll talk about my opponent.
Yeah.
I just think people want to see different stuff. There's so many promos against a blank wall that are like, September 27th, I'm gonna beat you up, John
Yeah.
Blade, or whatever their name is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's that gets old and boring, especially during the pandemic. Like
Mm.
people were fearing for their lives and were trapped in their houses. So I had quite a bit of freedom, to be honest, in Ohio. I was a bit lax with the rules and things like that, and I was wrestling a lot, so I felt bad. So I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do like high production promos. I've always wanted to do that, but like when I was younger, I didn't have the technology. Now I have this thing, which is my phone that shoots 8K, and you can edit it in your phone and do whatever. Like no one has any excuses. People have made full length motion pictures with iPhones. You do not have an excuse. Just figure it out. And that's where it all came from. And I watched this Rick Rubin
Yeah.
podcast. He was on Rogan, and he said he just makes stuff that he likes, and he
Yeah.
hopes that other people like it. And
Yeah.
I really have really started to live my life that way. I'm just going to make things that I like, and I hope that there are like-minded people out there that dig it, or they at least see it and see the passion, and they're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the reasons I wanted to chat to you, because I definitely see that passion in the work you do, Rickey. I've got a few more questions that I want to add on here, but prompted by our sort of chat before we sort of started the interview. Do you have any musical inspirations? You mentioned Rick Rubin there as well. Any musical inspirations, that bands that you like or artists that you grew up with that sort of inform any of the work you do?
So I am not the biggest music person, I will say. I like music, but I get a lot of inspiration from music to wrestling. Like when I'm my brain is such a MV zone from when I was, a teenager watching people make these MVs of indie wrestling. Like when I hear a song, I can see the wrestling playing in my head.
Yeah,
So I definitely a lot of pop punk. The band that I was coming out to for a long time is called Bad Rabbits,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they're one of my favorite bands. They're super cool. Like they've like given me permission to use the song, and they share stuff when I come out to it, and they follow me on all the socials. Like it's really cool that it's like a band like that is like seeing what I'm doing and is like, yeah, that's cool. And
mm,
but yeah, I mean, music is such an integral part of wrestling
yeah.
that like you have to have it because it gives you vibes. It sets the story. It's everything.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. And in terms of again, just sort of touching on before we get to the promo stuff, talking about that creative vision, I think the calling was fantastic. And while I've got you, I do want to sort of ask you about your memories of building that, and also working with it. Obviously, you got to work with new talent, fresh talents, legends as well. So when you were working on the calling stuff in MLW, and I guess the creative in MLW too, because from what I got into it a few years back, and I'm like, this is amazing. So, can you share some of your favorite memories from the last few years of MLW, the calling, and your work there? Because I really think MLW deserves more of a platform in the UK, but that is my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. MLW is great. They put on great shows. That the production is top notch. The stories are good. All that. The calling was, we were kind of figuring out as we were going, really, and that things happen in wrestling and people swap and there's new members and things like that. But I will say the whole vibe of it was cool. The promos, the guy who edits the show, his name's Dean. Absolutely, my hat goes off to him. He needs to be praised more. He did all of the promos for the calling and he edited them. I shot them with one of the producers, Alex Greenfield. He had a vision for it. And then what I really liked about Alex is that he would listen to my ideas and make it a part of me too. So it was really cool. It was very collaborative. And then being able to work with Raven was just like absolutely amazing. And like, he's definitely a veteran who, like, first show, a couple days after, just randomly got a text and was like, hey, it's Raven. I'm like, what? Like, and then he's like, hey, you should wear this jacket, you should do this. And like, we would be at shows and he'd be like, tell me your promo, like, let me talk to me about your match. Like, and he was very, very forthcoming with knowledge, super nice guy. And I remember one time, one of the first shows I was there, this is a great story. I don't know if I've ever told this story, I'm not sure, but uh I was doing a lot on the show. I had like 2 matches and like a couple segments, and I'm also like a player coach. I'm an agent, so I agent matches as well backstage, and I'm in on the production meetings and things like that. So I was just really busy that day, and I was running all over the place, and they kept yelling at me to get down to the go position and be like, "Hey, get down here, blah blah blah." And I'm just like, I just was like, "Hey guys, I'm like, I can't be everywhere," and I started kind of getting a little hot. And Raven pulls me aside. And we were in the ECW arena. Couldn't have been a more perfect place for this to happen. He pulls me aside by these stairs that go up to the Eagle's Nest, and he goes, "Hey man, shut the fuck up." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Shut the fuck up." And I was like, "Okay." He goes, "You're doing a lot on the show, and you're complaining. They're putting you over. They're pushing you. Shut up. Do your job." And I said, "Yes, sir." I love that. Not a lot of people have been wrestling longer than me, so it's like, I want to be put in my place. I want critiques from people who have went there and done that. I want critiques from younger people that might see something differently because they have a different eye. So I loved it. And, but yeah, it's just a great story. Scotty's the man. I love him to death. And there's a few times where I did some spots and he kind of was like, oh, like cringe. And I'm like, man, if I can get him to do that,
Yeah.
that's sick. Also, he taught me how to do the even flow DDT. Like, legitimately showed me how to do it. So like, that is,
Yeah.
blows my mind, because Raven was one of my favorites growing up. Absolutely. I model a lot of my promos after him. Like, my style, I like even dress like him now. I'm tying the flannel around my waist because I was in a faction with Raven. If you go on the Wikipedia for Raven's Flock, my name is on there, and so is Jeff Cannonballs, who I also loved working with at MLW. If you don't know who Cannonball is, please check him out. One of the bbest deathmatch wrestlers around, and one of the best dudes I know. But yeah, it's just, the MLW and the calling was really, really fun.
Yeah, man, it looked like so much fun. And again, talking about what's next for you, because I do want to touch on that as well. You mentioned, your agenting now. You mentioned in previous interviews, you want to give back to the younger generation. Do you think about at this stage in your career, you're still going? I remember you saying, like, previously you were going to quit at like 30. You're still going now. Like, do you have a vision for your future in wrestling at the moment?
Yeah, no, for sure. I love wrestling, through and through. I'm on the back 9 of this, I think, I wrestled more than I'm going to wrestle. So planning for the future is definitely something, and I want to be involved, whether that be working backstage at a big company, running a little small indie around, where I'm from, anything like that. Just helping out. I try to help as much as I can, because I didn't get a lot of help when I was young, and when I did, I always remembered it, always. So I always try to help people as much as I can. So yeah, I'm gonna be involved one way or another, even if I'm just the old brother that comes to the show when the local show's there, and I just hang out and talk to everybody. I'm gonna be around wrestling for as long as I can.
Yeah, again, I'm excited to see what happens next for you, Ricky, and I've really enjoyed watching your work. And one thing we do know you are doing is Burning Heart Wrestling coming
Yes.
up. Of course, you've got not only Swansea but Liverpool Wolves as well. That there is a tour going on. So, what are you looking forward to as a veteran, as somebody that can give back, but as as somebody that's achieved as much as you have achieved? What are you looking forward to? How are you challenging yourself, in new ways as you head into this tour?
So yeah, I'm part of the committee of wrestlers that run Burning Heart, and we just want to do things the right way. We want to have great pro wrestling, hard hitting action, and we want to treat the wrestlers the right way. It's a bunch of wrestlers that are making wrestling for wrestlers and fans, and there's nothing better than that for me, because a lot of times on the indies, a lot of promoters don't really take care of the guys that much, and it's
Right.
that's something that sticks in my craw, and that's something that we really want to change. I think we started off with a banger. I mean, Liverpool, that venue is sick. The Olympia is awesome. I'm really excited about wrestling in there. I've never been there. I'm super excited to come back to Wolverhampton. Wolverhampton was the first place I ever wrestled at in the UK, at Fight Club Pro at the Planet. So, and then Wales, I've loved Cardiff. I love Wales. One of my great friends, Mark Andrews, is Welsh, and I love going there when I come into the country. So to be able to do a show in Swansea is really cool. Like, it's almost like a reunion tour, because, before the pandemic, the British wrestling scene was absolutely insane. Some of the best wrestling I've ever been around, some of the greatest crowds I've ever wrestled in front of, and I'm just really, really looking forward to doing it with the guys that were at the forefront of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A well-deserved, well-deserved opportunity for you, and I'm sure that many people will learn from you there. And Ricky, I could talk to you for hours, mate. Thank you so much for making the time for me today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll do it again soon.
Yes, go. There's still tickets available, guys. BurningHeartProWrestling.com. Please come to the shows, Liverpool, Wolverhampton, and Swansea. I promise you it'll be a good time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ricky, very much.
No problem.